Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples Integrated Recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice and sugarcoating, no platitudes or bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. A lot of the clients that I start with tell me that they want to feel happy, and I get why. I think back to several years ago when I was going to therapy before I had quit drinking and actually started getting my life together. And I remember telling the therapist, I just want to be happy. And she told me something that I was very surprised to hear. She said, well, that's not realistic. She said, the goal should be for you to just feel content. And I don't think I had ever heard that before. But it makes sense that people want to feel happy. Happiness feels like relief. It feels like the pressure dial has finally dropped down and you can breathe without bracing. But happiness is kind of a shaky target because it's only an emotion. And emotions are not designed to be stable or permanent. They are designed to be responsive. If you look at it honestly, happiness shows up when conditions line up, like if you slept okay, or when your body feels decent, when your money stress isn't spiking, when your relationship feels relatively safe, or when your workload is manageable, if your brain isn't scanning for threats, or you have enough perceived control to feel like you're not trapped. Then something shifts. You get a terrible night's sleep. You have a conflict in your relationship. You have a health scare. A dog vet bill for an emergency thing that's $4,000. A weird interaction with a friend. A stressful week. And all of that happiness that people were chasing disappears. This is not a character flaw, and it's not proof that you are doing life incorrectly. It is your nervous system. And where people get stuck is that they expect happiness to behave like a permanent setting. Like if they could just figure out the right routine, the right relationship, the right mindset, maybe a better job, right supplements, right spiritual practice, then I'll finally stay happy. And then when they can't, they start interpreting normal human fluctuations like personal failure. Like, how come I just can't be as grateful as Steve? Why can't I just be as positive as Terry? What's wrong with me? How come everybody else looks like they have it together and I don't? And that's the trap. Chasing an emotional state instead of building your own psychological stability. So this is where the distinction between happiness and joy matters. Happiness is a state that you experience, but joy is a posture that you develop. And I'm not talking about joy like you have my partner's 24/7 golden retriever energy and constant cheerfulness, or that you have some sort of spiritual bliss. I'm talking about joy as an internal coherence, stability inside your body and mind, even if emotions change, and the ability for you to stay grounded, even if you're getting lifed, whether that is that you are navigating changes, ruptures, disappointment, surprise, maybe an ending of something, or starting all over. If you have joy, it doesn't erase pain, but it does change how pain is metabolized. So I want to walk through 8 psychological concepts that are a framework for joy, not as commandments, not moral obligations, or this is what good people do, but psychological capacities that you can build. Kind of like going to the gym. And these concepts don't eliminate suffering. They reduce friction that can turn pain into a prolonged collapse. Capacities that will stabilize you if you are tired, stressed, grieving, anxious, triggered, or overwhelmed. Let's get into the first. Number 1 is perspective. Widening the lens when life has narrowed it. When people are distressed, your perspective zooms in. It becomes super narrow, and that's not weakness, it's part of your biology. An anxious nervous system collapses the lens. A depressed nervous system collapses the lens. Trauma collapses the lens. And chronic stress collapses the lens. This leads everything to start feeling personal, where you may start saying, this is all about me. You may notice permanence, like, I can't imagine it ever not being like this, or this is going to happen forever, or global, like everything is ruined, everything's done, and that's a surefire way for you to spiral. But perspective is the ability to hold your experience without treating it like the entire truth of reality. It is cognitive flexibility, the ability to say, this hurts, and it's real, but I know it's not the whole story. A practical way to think about this is your mind is always sampling reality from one specific angle. You're touching one part of the elephant and assuming that it's the whole elephant. I'll back up a little bit. A few weeks ago, I did not a podcast, an article on truth being subjective. So there's a story about blind men and an elephant, and one grabs the leg and swears that it is a tree. One grabs the tail and thinks that it's rope. One grabs an ear and insists that it is a fan. One grabs a trunk and insists that it's a snake. And each of them is right about their experience, but they are wrong about the whole. So, you are touching one part of the elephant and assuming that it's the whole thing. Maybe you're in a season where your relationship is hard. That doesn't automatically mean that it is doomed. Maybe you're in a season where your motivation is low. That doesn't mean that you're going to be there forever. And maybe you are in a season where you feel really lonely, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be alone forever. So perspective does not invalidate pain, it locates it accurately. And that matters because certainty is something that keeps our nervous system stuck. When you become absolutely certain that your feeling is the final truth, your body stays activated. But when your perspective widens, certainty can soften, and then the system can downshift. Joy starts growing when people stop mistaking their current emotional weather for the entire climate of the universe. Concept 2, humility. Loosening your ego rigidity without shrinking yourself. Humility is often misunderstood as self-minimizing, and that's not what we're talking about. Psychological humility is the ability to let go of your ego rigidity, your need to be right, superior, justified, certain, or the one who is morally clean in the story. That ego rigidity is something that keeps your nervous system in defense mode, and you can feel that in a room. You can feel it in yourself. The mind starts building arguments. You start rehearsing what you should have said. You start to prove your case like you're the cosmic prosecutor of the universe, and you sharpen your identity like a weapon. And a lot of suffering comes from that kind of rigidity. not because people are bad, but because the nervous system is behaving like it has something that it has to protect. So humility is the posture of, maybe I don't know fully yet. And that single sentence can drop your blood pressure. It doesn't mean that you have to win every moment, you don't have to protect every image, and you don't have to control every perception. Humility can also make your relationships workable. Because if two people are trapped in certainty, like I'm right, you're wrong, repair is impossible. Humility is what allows the pivot into curiosity. Like, help me understand what you meant when you said that. Or, hang on, maybe I'm missing something. Or, I can own my part in this without collapsing into blame or self-hatred. Those are not weakness, those are strengths, because a humble person can hold values without needing validation. Joy grows when the self stops being the center of every interaction, every conflict, and every moment. Concept 3, humor. Humor is one of the most underrated emotional regulation tools that we have. And I'm not talking about like mocking or being sarcastic or deflecting in conflict. I'm talking about shared absurdity, the ability to recognize that being a human, our consciousness inside of these bones and this flesh prison is just often ridiculous. And sometimes we can just laugh at how absurd it is to be human and like how our nervous systems cause us to do the craziest shit, that if we can just stop taking ourselves and everything so seriously, notice that like very few things are quite as high stakes as we make them out to be. Every awkward moment is like shame fuel. So humor is a pressure release. It signals safety. And if you've ever been in a hard season, like grief or stress or some serious conflict, and then when someone can crack a joke, maybe it doesn't totally deny pain, but it gives everybody a little bit of room to breathe. And you can just feel that shift almost immediately. And that's a real regulation tool. And clinically, it shows up a lot as people heal. It's a marker of increased tolerance and ability to hold complex situations without collapsing. So some 12-step literature talks about how outsiders are often really confused when they see people in peer-led addiction programs laughing about like how bad and how sick we used to be. And so I think that really illustrates this well. Joy doesn't require constant seriousness. It requires perspective, and humor is perspective in motion. Concept 4, acceptance. Acceptance is one of those words that people hear and think like, okay, so am I just supposed to be like a doormat and just tolerate everybody's BS? No. Acceptance is not approval. It's not resignation. It's not being passive. It's not a spiritual bumper sticker of page 417 as something that you slap like a Flex Seal tape on everything. Acceptance is willingness to see reality as it is so that you can choose a response effectively. And resistance amplifies suffering. You can feel it when we're stuck in these like, this shouldn't be happening, or this isn't fair, or I can't believe that this is my life, or I did everything right. And I mean, some of those statements might be true, but physiologically, they keep the body stuck and activated. And now you're fighting the moment instead of just engaging in it, even if it's not really a pleasant one. One teacher uses the metaphor of Tetris, which I really like, that you don't get to choose which shape falls, but you do get to choose how you're going to place it. So acceptance is saying, this is what's here now, this is what's in front of me, What's the wisest thing that I can do with this? And that shift matters because it returns agency, not total control, agency. Emotionally, acceptance also allows feelings to move through instead of fossilizing. So if you're sad, be sad. And if you're angry, it's okay to be angry. Suffering is not the emotion, it's the refusal to let the emotion exist. Joy grows when you can stop arguing with reality and just start dealing with it. Concept 5 is forgiveness. One of the most misunderstood concepts in mental health, because this is not about forgetting, excusing, reconciling, pretending something didn't happen, or not having boundaries. It's about reclaiming emotional autonomy. Holding resentment can feel like strength for a moment, but the nervous system really experiences this as a leash or a tether. You stay connected to this person that you resent through anger. You relive it, you rehearse it, you re-feel it, you are scanning for it in the present, and anger can be healthy. It can be clarifying. It can be protective. It's a warning sign. But chronic hatred is different. Hatred keeps your body in threat mode way after the threat has neutralized. So forgiveness is when you choose to decide this no longer is going to run my present. And that doesn't mean that you just say a quick prayer and you forgive it away. It doesn't mean that you invite a person back to your life. And it doesn't mean that you stop naming the impact of what happened. You should not drop accountability, and you should not donate your nervous system to the past. This happens on a timeline. It can't be forced, and a lot of times you have to re-forgive over and over and over again. But people forgive when carrying the weight of all that heaviness costs more than it does to just put it down. Joy grows when emotional energy can return back to the present. Concept 6, gratitude. And this gets a bad reputation because it's often used as a club, or at least that's what I've seen in some recovery circles. I have heard people say things like, you need to just be grateful, or some people have it worse, or stop focusing on the negative. And that's not gratitude, that is dismissal. Real gratitude is training your attention. Our nervous systems are wired to scan for danger. That is not alcoholism, that's not addiction, it's not pessimism, that's just your biology. And the problem is that threat scanning can become a lifestyle, and then people start to feel like life is nothing but constant pressure. Gratitude retrains attention to notice support instead of just stress. So you may start to notice your resources alongside of your problems, or connections that you have alongside of conflict. If your day is hard, but you had one real conversation with somebody who cares, gratitude notices that. And if your week is really heavy, but your body still carried you through it, gratitude notices that. If your life is messy, but you have the ability to still choose the next right thing, gratitude notices that. Gratitude does not erase pain. It balances perception so that pain isn't the only data point that your brain is recording. Joy grows when your nervous system can remember hardship exists, but it's not the only thing that exists. Concept 7 is compassion, and that is recognizing suffering and responding with care. So it doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything. It doesn't require justification. It doesn't mean that you endorse behavior. It simply acknowledges pain and wishes for relief. So my partner and I were coming back from Marco just a few days ago, and some jackass on a motorcycle was like driving super fast, in and out of traffic, weaving, just super dangerous driving. And I remember asking him if that guy had an accident as a result of his total jackassery, would you still stop and help him? And my partner said, yeah, it's the right thing to do. And I think he's right on that, is the guy driving like a jerk? Absolutely. I don't endorse the behavior, but if he is then thrown from the crotch rocket and has an arm that is dismembered, I can stop and help somebody. There's a physiological reality here because when you move into compassion, threat activation tends to drop. Compassion is a regulating state because it shifts the body from defensive posture into connection. And compassion has to include self. A lot of people live with a brutal internal voice. They would never speak to a friend the way that they speak to themselves. They would offer grace, but inwardly, they're like a constant court trial. I should be over this. I'm behind. I'm weak. I always screw things up. And that tone creates shame. Shame is rocket fuel for collapse, relapse, burnout. You having self-compassion isn't self-indulgent. It's recognizing your humanity and working with it instead of against it. Joy collapses under self-contempt, but joy grows if care replaces contempt. Last is generosity. And I'm not talking about self-sacrifice, I'm talking about engagement. People often try to heal by fixing themselves in isolation like they are a broken machine. But humans regulate through participation. I have so many clients with addiction who only want to work with me. They need a higher level of care. And hold on, I don't want to sound like I'm some addiction guru, that I'm the spiritual sage of addiction. But they want it to be contained to one-on-one therapy. But it's groups, whether that's an intensive outpatient or residential program, or even going to an AA meeting or whatever, giving your time, attention, and care, within boundaries, of course, creates a sense of belonging and purpose. And it reminds you that you're part of something larger than just your own internal weather. So this does not mean being a doormat, and it doesn't mean over-giving until you resent everybody, because generosity without boundaries can turn into martyrdom or resentment, and neither of those are joy. And an example of this is that I had a mentor in a 12-step program who asked me to take on a 2-year service commitment as like a group's financial chair. And maybe at some point I would have done that. But right now, I work too much. I probably work between 50 and 60 hours a week. And to take on a 2-year service commitment on top of that, it was just too overwhelming. And I said no. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to have boundaries and to not be generous 24/7. Healthy generosity is contribution that aligns with your values and your capacity. It's participation that doesn't abandon self. And joy grows when life is not about some consuming relief, but more about building meaning. So I'm going to just tie all of this together, because that was all 8. Happiness comes and goes with conditions, but joy is built through posture. So these 8 concepts are not commandments, they are capacities. They're ways of organizing yourself so that your emotions can move through you without breaking you. So, recap: When your perspective widens, your nervous system settles. When humility loosens ego rigidity, your relationships can become repairable. When humor returns, pressure drops. When acceptance replaces resistance, your agency comes back online. When forgiveness releases the past, energy can return to the present. When gratitude balances threat scanning, life becomes more than just problems. When compassion replaces contempt, shame loses power. And when generosity becomes participation, meaning can grow. That is not spiritual bypassing, it's psychological resilience. Life changes, pain happens, emotions shift, but you are less brittle when they do. And that is doing the work. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we are all capable of growing past them. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. And in the meantime, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.